Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new episode of the Fintech Hunting Podcast. We have a very special guest for you today. He's an industry expert, a thought leader, a call center extraordinaire, an engagement expert. We could not be more pleased to welcome Rob Baer, president of Anomaly Squared. Rob, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Michael. I'm looking forward to it.
Well, it is great to have you on. You have a wealth of experience. Before we dive into all of those cool things that you've got going on, tell our listeners who maybe aren't familiar with you a little bit about your background and how you got into all of this knowledge and expertise with call centers and financial services and everything else.
Yeah, what started off as a struggling college student, right? I needed to pay my way through school. So I found a job in my hometown, Parkersburg, West Virginia, and went to be an agent. Call center industry for college students is perfect. Pay is good. The structure of the scheduling is fantastic. So I really just started off, and for a year, I was on the front lines making phone calls every single day. The company I was working with had started to expand. They had reached out to me and asked me if I would want to be part of the expansion and go help run a center in Portsmouth, Ohio. And the rest is history. 26 years later, I'm still in the industry.
Well, I love it. And I think so many times when people talk call centers, they think they know what they're talking about. They've dabbled it in a little. Maybe they hired a caller, but they've actually never done it. You've done it. You've been in the trenches, and you've taken it all the way through. You've seen the industry evolve. Tell us a little bit before we get in. How have you seen the industry continue to grow and kind of evolve from a call center perspective?
Well, it's interesting. I think the markets change rather frequently, meaning who needs a call center for service, right? When I started, I was doing fundraising for nonprofits. I did, again, I'm going to date myself here, but some of the early calling that I was a part of was calling for long distance service. And then we sort of migrated over to cell phones, and then we got into credit cards and balance transfers. And it's just constantly evolving as far as who out there needs the call center for support. I mean, I don't know if people realize, Papa John's and companies like Domino's are now outsourcing their work to call centers. So it's just an amazing industry. It's always going to be needed. People always want to pick up the phones.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit about why call centers are so important in the mortgage industry.
Perfect. So really what I think happens within the mortgage industry is you have a twofold. And I think COVID has sort of changed the landscape a little bit. But we'll start off with just in general. Most of the time, mortgage institutions are not maximizing their current lead pool, right? So they get a lead and they're only attempting that lead one, maybe two times. And then they just move on for a myriad of reasons, right? Whether it's staffing, whether it's a new lead has come in that's higher priority, or whether they just don't have the technology to sort of track the number of attempts that's occurred on a lead. So I think the big difference now is there are a lot of technological experts, a lot of companies out there that can tell you how you're doing in managing your leads. And then from a call center standpoint, they can provide a sort of extension, right? They can be an extension of your company. If you're not able to get to those leads, they can help process those to keep you from really spending money unnecessarily or not maximizing the leads that you purchased.
Oh, so many good insights there. And I think you're right. As the industry evolves, right, I think a lot of people thought consumer direct, that's the call center.
Yeah.
Well, with COVID, that's changed radically. We're not through all of COVID yet, but if you look at it, what I've seen is a lot of consumer direct principles now being applied to the retail side of the business. The borrower doesn't want to come into the branch. The loan officer needs a way to find out which leads should they be following up on. The institution is struggling, saying, hey, we don't have as much staff. We're struggling. How do we get through to these people? Talk to me a little bit, when you talk call centers, how quickly, when you outsource correctly, and you can explain kind of what does that mean, but how quickly can you get somebody ramped up? Because I think that's the other challenge. A lot of people say, well, I don't know how quickly I could ramp that up. I'm going to miss this opportunity, so why bother?
Well, companies who have a call center background in the lending, mortgage sort of space they have trained agents waiting and ready to take more phone calls. And so also, in addition to that, a call center who has sort of the background and understanding of the way the lending institutions work and how we can support them, they can turn a program around in a day or two. Most of the time, the training is sort of, depending, there's only so many things that you can learn in a call center about the mortgage industry. And so really what I think takes place is when a company outsources to a call center who specializes in the lending institution, they're getting somebody who understands it, can spin it up quickly, and can be cross-trained so that within just a few days, they have a number of agents that are ready to go. And the other component is you can do a slow roll, right? I mean, maybe day one, you start with 4 agents. You have proof of concept. You show success. Day 2, you go to 6. A week later, you're at 10. Next thing you know, a month in, you have 20 agents doing a lot of your lead qualification for you.
Well, and I love how you talk about how you can scale up, whether it's go full steam right ahead, whether it's a gradual approach. But the beautiful thing is when you outsource to someone who has that knowledge and expertise, you don't have the overhead. You don't have to create and buy all of the technology to figure out how to set up these call centers. So I think there's a great opportunity for these financial institutions that say, you know what, we really need to generate more leads, but we don't want to create our own call center. Talk to me about how having somebody who understands the technology, understands the nuances of it, can really provide much greater value than trying to go it alone.
Well, I think it starts with recruiting, right? Recruiting a call center agent is much different than necessarily you would. The process is similar, but who you're targeting, where you're targeting as far as a call center agent is going to be different than maybe a loan officer. And so I think it really starts there. And so a call center support system understands, one, how to recruit, where to find those employees, and they're able to get them onboarded at a much faster rate. And it's not inexpensive, right? And so you need somebody who understands the game, who's a part of it every single day, who understands how to get these, one, how to go find them, 2, get them onboarded, and 3, how to train them, right? And so those are, and a call center it's not just a center. They're a business, right? They have a finance department. They have a human resources department. They've got a tech team. They've got operations. They have quality. They've got a quality assurance team. So they have all the similar divisions that many, many companies have. And unless you have that infrastructure in place, it's very hard to do that in a very short period of time.
You make so many good points there. And I think one of the other things I hear, especially about call center, Michael, I like the idea, but come on. I mean, I don't want to send that overseas. I want somebody who knows the language, not only understands what my company does, but I don't want that money going somewhere else. How do you respond to that? And what's the difference in call centers of, onshoring, offshoring? Give me a little bit more insight from that perspective.
Yeah, definitely. So for us, we have a little bit of experience in all of it, right? Domestic, onshore, nearshore, offshore. I will say, if you're looking for a domestic call center, there are plenty out there. We're one of those. We employ almost 300 people here domestically, and so we act as just an extension of the organizations and doing their work. If you're considering going offshore, you just got to understand what that brings. The value to it is a little bit of redundancy. The value to going offshore is you're obviously going to get maybe a little bit better price than what you would domestically. The downside of it is you're not going to get the same production. You're not going to have the same customer experience for your customers if you do decide to go offshore or near shore compared to somebody who is doing it domestically. So you just got to kind of weigh your options. You got to weigh what matters to you. And you may find that it's okay to outsource offshore. You may decide that, you know what, we want that customer experience to be top notch. So we're going to partner with somebody domestically.
Awesome. Great input there. And I think it's important to understand the options and then to really know what you value most and what's important, and to go to somebody who has the expertise all the way around who can really serve that. So let's talk a little bit more financial services, the mortgage market. Obviously, rates are ticking up some. We're shifting from a refi market to a purchase market. Leads now are more important than they've ever been. 2 years ago in 2020, pandemic hit, but man, if you could write a mortgage, you had plenty of leads and it wasn't a problem.
Yeah,
now it's a hyper competitive marketplace. So I've heard you and I, when we've had discussions where you say now every lead matters, every lead's important. So tell me a little bit more of why you say that and how a call center can help really ensure that lead is properly handled and not lost.
Yeah, every lead does matter. But within that lead, speed to lead is probably most critical when you're just looking at one individual lead, right? Because everybody's competing for that one, and it is, right? You're changing from that retention to acquisitions now. And so if you're not on top of speed to lead, we know that most sales are converted within the first 24 hours of that lead being generated. We know that most sales or sort of transfers or whatever metric that you're looking at occurs within 3 dial attempts. And so if you don't have the staff to go after and really convert and engage in that customer as soon as possible, you're going to miss out on potential revenue. And so
and I think that is critical.
Yeah, absolutely. And so what a call center can provide, right, if you're outsourcing that initial sort of lead qualification, is what happens is the call center is spending time ensuring speed to lead exists, right? And then what you can do is your loan officers, instead of spending all their time doing the cold calling, they're able to spend the time on a warmed up, high level, high intent lead. And that matters too, right, to your retention of your loan officers.
Absolutely, because then you're going to get better loan officers. You're going to keep the quality loan officers you have because you're giving them those warm leads. And to your point, and I'm so glad you said that, speed to lead is critical. I've seen a lot of studies. MIT has done a study. If you are contacted within the first 5 minutes versus 30 minutes, you have 100% better chance of converting. So speed does matter. And I think in today's market, you've got to have the resources, you've got to have the infrastructure, and if you don't, going to someone who has a call center, has the call center expertise, and can get you up and running quickly is really the best of both worlds. You get that speed to lead, you get somebody who can reach out to them, but you didn't have to build all of that infrastructure yourself.
Yes, correct.
So there's some other challenges, though, with today's market, right? There's caller ID management, and hey, a lot of people just focus on they close the deal, but what kind of care are you giving after the close? And why are phone calls important? So talk to me a little bit about those two topics, because I think there's some that people kind of forget about, but everyone's trying to block somebody from spamming them. Everyone's trying to block a caller. Walk me through some of that.
Well, the first thing I want to share is my personal experience with spam calls, right? I think today alone, I've received 7. And every single one of them says spam. No one has their entity identity associated with that phone call. And so what's happening now is if a call is labeled as spam, the customer's not going to pick up, or the contact rates are going to drop significantly, right? So it's important that you, reach out to your technological provider, right? Make sure you're communicating, asking them questions about what they are doing to help and ensure that your calls are not being labeled as spam. Simple things as rotating caller IDs. There's companies out there that can provide that sort of number reputation management process, right? Or they can provide entity identity, which all of those are going to help sort of combat that. And it's critical because if you're not getting somebody on the phones, if you're not speaking to somebody, well, you're not closing sales, right? And the difference between a 10% contact rate and a 30% contact rate is monumental. I mean, it has a significant impact on your revenue stream.
Absolutely. And I think that's critical. And that's one of the advantages when you go to an outsourced call center. They're reaching out. They know these nuances. You're taking the extra steps to make sure that your calls are not labeled spam versus a lot of companies that say, well, hey, I set up the phone lines and we're good to go, and can we track how many calls were made? It's a lot more in depth than that. And to your point, if your call is labeled as spam, I'm not picking it up. I mean, just like you said, you had 7 today. I had at least 6 that came through. And as soon as it says spam, I set my phone down and I keep working. I'm not going to grab that call.
My daughter is 15 and she even says it now. She's, Dad, you've got another spam call. And I'll go grab the phone and she says, Dad, don't answer. Don't do anything. Let it go. You know? So definitely, I mean, it's well known.
Well, and it's one of those things, though, that I think people overlook when they start saying, we're going to start an outreach program, we're going to start calling internally. And if you haven't worked through all of this, you don't know what you don't know. So go to somebody who is the expert. Now, let's talk about the other side of it. The calls go in, the lead is transferred, you close the deal, woohoo. You know, in the mortgage industry, everyone's been very transaction focused. So then they're on to the next transaction. But we know through a lot of studies, the average borrower is going to get 7 to 11 loans over the course of their lifetime. Right. But unfortunately, only 15% go back to their original lender. Part of that is because there's no after close care. Talk to me about that topic and how a call center can impact that.
Call centers can provide a concierge service, right? Where and the nice thing about most of the ones that specialize within the lending institution, for us, for example, is we partner with those organizations to say, what does our script look like? What is the cadence going to be in an attempt to help you retain those customers? The goal is to have that customer for life, right? And so what we, again, I use the phrase, we act as an extension to the lending institution. And our number one priority when it comes to that concierge work is, are we ensuring that customer is happy? Are we answering the questions that the lending institutions thinks are important to that customer retention? And those are all things that a call center has the time to do versus the loan officer who's out there trying to close sales every single day.
Oh, great feedback and insights there. So, Rob, tell our listeners, Anomaly Squared, what do you guys do? What do you specialize in? And if I'm a lender listening to this, how could I benefit from what it is you guys offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So we were started because the owner of our company, Jerry Wass, he had a mortgage, a brokerage. And, his biggest challenge was, I can't get, or he could, not me, he could not get his loan officers to make the calls. He'd give them a lead to start the day, and he'd say, I want you to try it once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and maybe once at night if you don't get a hold of them. Well, he just couldn't get them to make the phone calls that he was trying to execute. And so he came from a call center background. As a matter of fact, he and I worked together when he was 16 years old. And I think what he did is he decided, if I can take all these leads and put them on a dialer and have an agent do some simple pre-qualification, I'm going to accomplish just what's going to happen from that is going to be astronomical. 1, my speed of lead is going to be there. 2, I have somebody doing the cold calls, which are difficult, right? Nobody wants to do cold calls. Not nobody, but if I have a choice between a warm lead and a cold lead, well, I'm picking up the phone for the warm lead, right? And so
exactly.
He just solved so many issues by having, putting these leads on a dialer, getting agents to make the calls, improving the speed of lead. And then he also improved the retention rates of the loan officers because now they're spending their time on warmed up quality leads. And so then we just continue to grow, and we expanded into other verticals that needed the same type of services, where that speed to lead, where the lead qualification, where warming up mattered. And so really what I say Anomaly Squared is, in a nutshell, we are lead qualification, or we handle or we process all the leads that you just simply do not have the time to get to.
I love it. What's one way, if somebody wants to get a hold of you or find out more about Anomaly Squared, what's the best way that they can do that?
They can reach out to me directly. I'm the president, but I also work hand in hand with our sales team. And so anybody that's looking to reach out to us, reach out to me directly. I'll be happy to take the phone call.
Email, LinkedIn, phone number. Yep. What's the best
Email
way?
Email is an easy way. It's rbarrettanomalysquared.com. That's my phone is with me at all times. So as long as it doesn't caught up in spam, I will respond right away.
Outstanding, Rob. You and I could talk for hours on this. It's fascinating, all of the cool things you're doing. I learn something every time we talk. As we're wrapping up, what do you see for the mortgage industry through the rest of 2022 and kind of the impact that call centers can have on the industry?
I think it first starts off with technology. And when I say technology is have some sort of CRM that can manage your leads, right? Tell you what the next step should be with that lead. And there are lots of partners out there like Accelerator, a Sales Boomerang, which are great in helping facilitate and manage those leads. And then I think the next step is, because it's becoming uber competitive, right? Speed to lead matters. That's where the call centers can come into play. A company like Anomaly Squared has the agents sitting there. They have the expertise. They have the ability to warm up your leads and keep your loan officers busy on the leads that matter to them.
Outstanding. Rob, thank you so much for all of your insights and your time today and being a guest on the Fintech Hunting Podcast.
Thank you very much. I enjoyed it.